Normally, 90% of this channel's content is about Formula 1, and the remaining 10% covers other competitions, like IndyCar, National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing and Rallies. However, in recent years, one category has been growing in popularity very rapidly: endurance racing. More precisely, the WIC, which is the World Championship of this discipline. The hypercar regulations have attracted major brands like Ferrari, Porsche, Peugeot, BMW, and Cadillac to compete. And soon the return of Ford and the return of McLaren have been confirmed. And this has caught the attention of many people who want to join endurance racing categories, but they don't really know how they work, and that discourages them. With your support, I want to make this short video into something more today. A mini-series where we'll explain how different competitions in the motorsport world work, starting today with an explanation of how endurance racing categories work. Focusing mainly on the quantum error correction, where we'll tell you in a very basic way how they work, what the goal is, the different classes, and much more. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the guide on how endurance racing categories work. Let's start with the basics first. What is an endurance race? Well, endurance races are long-duration competitions where the goal is to last for a certain amount of time. Race durations vary depending on the competition, ranging from 4 to 24 hours, with 6 and 12-hour races also common. The goal is to compete on a specific circuit and last for the entire duration of the event, being the car that completed the most laps in that time. That is, generally it's not about completing a set number of laps, but rather, for example, after 6 hours have passed. The car that crosses the finish line first with the highest number of laps recorded becomes the winner of that race. These are races where speed does matter, but aspects like reliability to withstand the required amount of time on the track are also important. And where factors like strategy, tire saving, and fuel management become valuable. And above all, not making mistakes, because even the smallest error can ruin several hours of hard work. On Earth, many competitions test endurance. The pinnacle in this domain is the World Endurance Championship. Other worldwide categories include the European and Asian Le Mans Series and the Grand Touring 3 endurance categories like the Intercontinental Grand Touring Challenge, and to a large extent, International Motorsports Association in the United States. But anyway, now that we've explained a bit about what endurance races are, let's talk about how they work, going over their most basic aspects. Alright, as I mentioned in the previous point, endurance categories aim to have the cars complete as many laps as possible within a set time window. To achieve this, teams have more than one driver available so they can complete the races. Normally, in the WIC, that is, the World Championship, teams have up to 3 drivers, and in races like the 24 Hours of Daytona, they can even have 4. And these drivers spend a certain amount of time racing, which generally in long races can't exceed 4 hours in a row. The drivers compete inside the car, depending on their stint, and when their stint ends, they switch drivers during a pit stop. And the time each driver spends on the track will depend on the strategy and the work plan that each team has formulated before the race starts. Something that often confuses fans is seeing different cars on the track in the same race, from a hypercar to a Grand Touring 3. And that's because most endurance races in the world are multi-class. That means different types of vehicles compete in the same event, but each one is fighting for the victory in its respective category. The best way I can explain this is with an example. In the 2024 season of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, there were 4 different categories. The hypercars, which are the main category of the World Endurance Championship, are prototype cars based on real hypercars from each manufacturer. It's the championship's fastest category. The secondary category is Le Mans Prototype 2, which are more closed, economical prototypes, but also less powerful than a hypercar, and mostly used by private teams. But within this, there's the Pro-Am division, which is raced with the same Le Mans prototype, 2 cars but with drivers who have a lower level license. We'll explain that later. And there's also the LMGT3, a touring car category based on street models, with obvious modifications to make them suitable for racing. And because of its characteristics, it's the slowest category of the 3 mentioned earlier. Each of these categories competes on the same circuit, but each category has its own winner. The overall winner is the one who crosses the finish line first with the most laps when time runs out. But each particular category has its own winner. and depending on the endurance category, a certain license or level is required to be able to participate in it. And in this world of endurance categories, there are 4 divisions: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Bronze drivers are amateur drivers, or the so-called gentleman drivers, who are usually wealthy businessmen that pay to compete. And they are restricted to participating in Le Mans Prototype 2 Pro Amateur competitions, or in the LMGT 3 category. The silver category is the next division, known as the semi-professionals, featuring drivers with prior motorsports experience. But they don't have enough experience to participate in higher categories and are restricted to competing in the Le Mans Prototype 2 category. The gold drivers, who are the professionals, are those who have already proven their worth in different races and are considered fit for the highest categories within the world of endurance racing, which obviously include the hypercars. And the platinum drivers, who are basically the best drivers in the world, which includes endurance champions, former Formula 1 drivers, or champions from other different motorsport disciplines. They have no restrictions to compete in the toughest races and in the highest categories. But another very important aspect in endurance categories is a little thing called balance of performance, or balance of performance. This is basically a set of technical adjustments used in motorsport so that cars can compete under the most equal conditions possible. So this balance of performance system usually penalizes some cars, especially the fastest ones, by adding weight, limiting the power of the cars to equalize performance, and making different adjustments that can be done to the car, all to try to make this category as even as possible. With this, what is intended in these categories is to prevent a single manufacturer from being able to completely dominate a championship. And another thing to keep in mind is that since these are endurance races with extended time on the track, it's necessary to change drivers, tires, and refuel. And just like in Formula 1, there are hard tires, medium tires, and soft tires, as well as intermediate and wet tires. But unlike Formula 1, the pit stop in these categories works in a completely different way. To grasp how a pit stop functions in this category, we must discuss it in stages. And in this first phase, only refueling and driver change are allowed. And if the team requires it, the mechanics can work on cleaning the windshield and helping the drivers who are going to change their seat, but no other action is allowed. And when the refueling is finished, other mechanics are allowed to come in to change the tires. But there are only 4 mechanics available, so the changes are made in pairs, and 4 mechanics must change the 4 tires. So normally, one mechanic is in charge of the gun to unscrew and put on the wheel, and the other will place the new wheel. Take the old one, bring it to the pit, and repeat this process on the next tire. This is how the tire engineers work during pit stops. And once they change all 4 wheels and the 4 mechanics have left the work area, that's the specific point where the car can return to the track. Just like in other championships, in the World Endurance Championship there are different awards to crown the champions. First, we have the Drivers' Championship, which rewards the trio of each car from each team in the quest to find the season's champion drivers. And there is the Constructors' Cup. This time, manufacturers such as Ferrari, Porsche, and Aston Martin are rewarded, rather than the teams themselves. But since there are several teams and many different cars from the same brand, this championship only rewards the 2 best constructors in a given race. To give you a practical example, if there are 3 teams and each one has 2 Porsches, 1, 3, 5, 10, 11, and 15, and they finish in positions 1, 3, 5, 10, 11, and 15. Only the 2 best results from each race score points, which in this case would be those who finished in 1st and 3rd place. In very general terms, I think these are the most important facts to know in order to understand an endurance race in a very basic way. But now, to get to the final part of this video, we're going to tell you some historical facts that might be relevant for you to better understand endurance races. If we consider the pure essence of motorsport at its birth, the first races could be classified as endurance competitions, since, for example, the first recorded car race in the history of motorsport was the Paris-Rouen Rally at the end of the 1800s. And this competition consisted of races from one town to another in a certain region of the world. So we could say that the fathers of endurance competitions are the races from those years, like the Targa Florio, the Mille Miglia, and the Carrera Panamericana, as well as the 24 Hours of Le Mans, which was created as a competition with the sole purpose of testing vehicles in the most challenging conditions to be able to test their endurance. And today, This event is precisely the most important race in the world of endurance categories, since the 24 Hours of Le Mans has been held since 1923 on a semi-street circuit in the city of Le Mans at the SART circuit, whose round is the jewel of the World Endurance Championship calendar. And you could say that it's the competition that everyone in this kind of discipline wants to win. Just as there is the Triple Crown of Motorsport, the virtual milestone of winning the three most prestigious competitions in the field, which in this case are the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the Monaco Grand Prix in Formula 1 and the Indianapolis 500 in IndyCar. Endurance racing also has what you could call its own Triple Crown, which in this case are winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans, part of the World Endurance Championship calendar. Winning the 24 Hours of Daytona, the most important race in the International Motorsports Association Championship, and the 12 Hours of Sebring, also part of this championship. Rolex has been the sponsor of endurance events for several years now. And to the winners of Le Mans and Daytona, this watch brand rewards them with a collector's item, a Cosmograph Daytona watch that is given to the winner of the competition. It's part of the special award ceremony that 24 Hours have at both Le Mans and Daytona. But just like these two events, there are also many other competitions with a lot of prestige and a great reputation. For instance, the Spa-Francorchamps 24 Hours race uses Grand Touring, 3 cars. The legendary 24 Hours of Nürburgring, raced on the iconic 20-kilometer Nordschleife circuit, also features the Grand Touring, 3 category. We also have the 12 Hours of Bathurst in Australia, and for some years now, the 24 Hours of Dubai as well. It has gained prestige in the world of endurance racing. This, in broad terms, is the most significant aspect of this field's history. And how do endurance events in the world of motorsports work? And with this, ladies and gentlemen, we finish this short video. But this is exactly where I ask you, did you like this little guide? What else would you like us to explain to you from the endurance categories, and tell us if you would like us to repeat this experiment to explain other categories to you, like rallies, IndyCar, Formula E, and many more. So today, more than ever, I would like to know your opinion in the comments section, and I will be happy to read each and every one of your messages. For my part, I say goodbye by telling you that if you liked it, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video, and share this with your friends. I also invite you to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter, linked in the video description. And we'll see you soon for more content here on your Skyline Racing channel. Thanks for tuning in. See you later.